All right. Back at it again, Oliver. We got another fun guest this week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It was great getting to spend some time with you last week in the UK. Always love coming out here, and nothing beats in person.
Yeah, it was good. I think we're in a rare sunny spell in the UK at the minute. I think you got central London about as good as it gets.
I don't want to say I brought it with me, but I tried. But let's maybe introduce our guest today. I'm very really excited to have you on. Tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Full name is Everardo Munguia. I work for Lynch Creek Farm, but everyone knows me by Eve here for short. We are a wreath manufacturer. We manufacture Christmas products, Christmas wreaths, Christmas centerpieces, tabletops, and they're all handmade and fresh. We use faux components to add to decorations, but we ship those all over the United States. I've been with the farm since 2009 as a high school kid. So I started as a shipping guy. Would put all the bows in on our wreaths and give them to the next person that would put them in a bag, and then that person would put them in a box, and then we would put accessories in there, and then hand tape all our boxes and ship them to the customer. Farm's been around since 1980. Andy Hunter, our owner, took it over from his parents. His parents kind of did kind of a hobby wreath making kind of here locally. He took advantage in 2005 with the internet boom, and started selling, made a website and started selling online. And from there, the 2,000 square feet facility that we had that I worked in, his backyard of his parents' house. Now we have two locations and about almost 400,000 square feet of facility. So I've seen it grow, from from the little farm that it is, and now we still like to call ourselves a farm, even though we have, massive warehouse space. But it definitely still feels like that. There's a lot of employees that have been here 10 plus years, and I think that also, helps us succeed and be able to accomplish what we accomplish in such a short period of time. And that's kind of the difference between us is our season is so consolidated. We don't really sell on in other seasons. We just recently started doing some Mother's Day, Easter, and Valentine's Day stuff. But historically, we'd have to ship everything between November 1st to December 10th. It's pretty impressive what we can do in such a short period of time. And the challenge is, as we grow, my time frame doesn't grow, right? So I need to be able to scale and add resources, add employees to be able to accomplish our growth and, satisfy as many customers as we can. And that's a goal, right? My biggest spiel to everyone is as long as we don't interrupt that customer flow, we have a lifetime customer.
Is it all still on site though? Like in terms of the warehouse space, have you expanded in where you currently are?
So we're actually about 10 minutes away from the original farm. And we're still in the same town, Shelton, Washington. And then 4 years ago, we opened a facility up in Elma, Washington, which is about 45 minutes away. We just needed more space, and we were thinking of, building something here locally, close to this facility. But what we came across is we were always fighting for labor. There's two other companies
Mm.
here that do something similar. They're not an e-commerce. They're more B2B business, Um, so it was really hard sometimes to just compete against the same labor force.
Yeah.
So then we added our facility in Elma, and there's a big seafood industry there, like crabs, oysters, fish, that dies down during the winter time as we scale up. So we took advantage of that labor force, and the first couple of years it took a little bit to train that labor force, and but the last 2 3 years, they've learned quickly and been very helpful to our growth. And that facility, that the facility we have in Shelton was an old sawmill, so they used to make two by fours here, and we converted it into an e-commerce warehouse. So it was nice, but the warehouse in Elma it's almost a real traditional, fulfillment warehouse that, changes a lot for us, right? It's just the efficiencies, the level ground, I don't have to put a conveyor around a pillar, right? So everything's flat and a lot easier to accommodate. So yeah, taking the labor force advantage there was a great thing for us.
Yeah, it's so extreme. So, like, from what you're saying, being that seasonal, you're compressing literally everything into how many months of the year? Like, when's the action happening?
Yeah, so first shipping date is November 1st. So that's where our website you can pick the date to ship out, and then it goes all the way till between the 9th and 10th, depending on when UPS or FedEx remove the restrictions of guaranteed Christmas delivery. And then we do some expedited between like the 10th and the 15th, but that's the volumes is minimal compared to what we're doing between the 1st and the 10th.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure just on that little tiny part of the year to get things right. And yeah, the knock on effect, do you just feel like the whole business is planned around that part of the model?
It is, it's it's difficult, but everyone here looks forward for it. Like, I mean, you could call us a little crazy, but we love the challenge. We love, you know, making sure we can get as much as we can get out, and make great product too, right? Every year we're enhancing the quality of the product, and that goes down to because it's a handmade product. So people, as they do it more and more, right, they just get better at it, right? And the manufacturing part is just gets better. And it's just myself educating myself with, the greens that we're using, what type of green, where they're coming from, what elevation, makes a lot of difference. So from our raw materials to our decorations that we're importing overseas, we really focus on that. We have this plastic ball that we use that looks like glass. And the reason why it looks like glass is that we have our manufacturer actually get rid of the seam so it looks perfect, right? So just little details like that we focus on is what is kind of driven the culture in all of us and, providing quality products.
Yeah, you're in a lot of a way, your product isn't just um, something that you're buying. You're a massive part of your product is that whole production flow and the ability to do it in the time frame that you do. The
Yeah.
service is the product effectively with a lot of the stuff. When do you start like with that kind of? I'd love to get to the point of like peak planning, but is there like where what's the start of that cycle? Is that literally once the first one ends, you start thinking about what's the product catalog going to look like going into the next season, or like what innovation we're going to make, or where are we going to source from?
Absolutely. So it starts right off the bat, right? And we're trying to be better at being a year ahead, just because of how much work it is. But come, after we take our 2 week break after working, 60, 70 days in a row, right? Everyone takes a break, enjoys their family for Christmas and New Year's. Um, and we're pulling, information, reports, and everything from Fulfil, to look at what sold, what didn't sell, and then we're creating, what are we going to keep? How much inventory do we have? And then, okay, we can cycle through these products. Obviously, we have our staple products that we've had for, years, that generates a lot of revenue. But we're always trying to be fresh, right? We're always trying to create new products. I just got back from Dallas this last week. We went to a show where we buy all our decorations, and then we see trends. We talk to people there, kind of sit in some talks with designers. So it's a group of five of us that have different positions, but we all together work and look at trends, look what's selling, and really focus in January. And in February, we start bringing in samples. And then March, we start putting in stuff together. And then by April, we are finalizing new products.
And how much of the like when you're in that design phase, are you like heavily involved then from a production perspective of like how would we actually go with decorating with this item, and like are you even like putting options through like a test like production chain to go like this product's great and it's got great margin, but it's going to kill us and give us a bottleneck or whatever?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because we've been talking about that a lot. So the five people that are involved, so it's our director of customer service, Elena, our owner, Andy Hunter, then Sue is our general manager for wreaths, and then Bridget, our general manager for centerpieces, and then myself. So we all have different perspectives when it comes to the design process. Um, but we end up being the designers, right? So it's Sue and Bridge kind of are also the main designers for each of the products. And we all, it's like, okay, we made a new product. What box is it going to go in? What is it going to cost us? Okay, we have this beautiful decorated wreath. Okay, it's 6 touches. Each touch is, half a second. So then that's going to equivalent to this. So in our production schedule, we have to accommodate, these 1,000 pieces that we're going to make, and it's going to take us this long. And then, okay, how easy is it going to train a new crew versus how many returners are we going to have? So, we're really trying to even do that even more, right? Involving more people other than us, right? So we're really trying to, bring in our managers and supervisors that we're having stick around for the season, and they're also helping us accommodate those answers and really figure out, what's the best thing for us to do.
And does that come, I was going to say, does that come from like a learning at some point where like how have you got to these conclusions? I feel like there's a bunch of like really good stuff in what you're saying. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
unpick like where have some of these insights come from to get to them. Is it pain induced, some of these things?
Usually, some of the best lessons are unfortunately learned that way.
It is pain induced, right? It's uh, something that Andy and I do a lot, whereas we're always on the floor, right? We're in the warehouse, designing with people, shipping with people. Andy's even taking customer service calls, and he's just talking to people, and he loves doing that. But it's the feedback, right? It's like I can sit here in my office and make a plan, give it to someone, and expect them to execute it, right? But if I'm not on the floor seeing how my plan is being executed, me personally, once it's gonna be hard for me to convince me that it's wrong, right? Because and the other thing is I have to see it. I have to see it and touch it and feel it. And that's where we've all educated ourselves to be better, right? It's like, okay, we're designing this wreath, it's taking this and it's like, okay, what if we do this? What if we do that? So it's just enhancing what we're doing by just doing it, right? And really being involved in the whole process. And teaching that with our managers as well. So they're involved, they're tracking, like, okay, they saw Kabir over here. He designed that wreath in like half the time. Okay, Kabir, what did you do? Right. So it's really paying attention to everyone, and because someone can come along, and that's what happens a lot. Is like I remember when I was shipping, I had the record. I was bowing a wreath. I did 12 a minute. And then someone came along the next year and he did 15 a minute. And I'm like, What'd you do, Thomas? And he's like, well, if you move your hand like this and do it like this. And then I'm like, wow. And so then we implemented that, right? So then people start getting better and better. And that's what we really, it's that consistent, way of doing things and training that, but then also telling the employee that if they can find a faster way, find a faster way. And it's really using them, right? Because we have, 400 to 500 employees during the season. So let's use their skills to enhance our processes. And it's really paying attention to all the little stuff. And like Kabir said, it's the pain points, um, and really just looking at everyone's process to see if we can enhance it.
And there's a few things you touched on there that I really want to kind of highlight to the listeners. So the first being, and what's really impressive, is making sure you have all of those stakeholders involved in your product development. Like hearing what you just said, that everyone from customer service all the way through to the production team is involved in those conversations. So you can identify, to Oliver's point, oh, this wreath sounds great, but if we have six more touches along the process to produce it, that's actually going to impact our margin. And then no matter how great it looks, it's going to slow us down and have a negative impact to the customer experience, and we'll actually not make as much money. I've seen so many merchants who let their merchandising teams go crazy and produce these items, and then it gets down to it, and ops recognizes if this was a half an inch smaller, you could have fit it in this box, which would have improved the margin profile substantially. Or like Amazon now put it into this category, which gets a different commission rate. So like there's so many different variables, and having the relevant teams involved upstream can make your life so much easier downstream. So I really loved hearing that and hearing that that's part of your process. And I think the second big one that you talked about there was that you enable your team to, like, while you might have a process, okay, this is the way that I know works to get to 12 bows a minute, like enable your team to say, hey, if you can do it faster, go for it. And then you take that feedback loop and roll it out. And now everyone can follow that more efficient process, and hopefully the average goes up. And so really, I think both the enablement of the team, but also the feedback loop are incredibly important for any operation. This could be warehouse, not warehouse, because you get the shared learnings and the benefit, which I think is really great.
Yeah, and Kabir, don't get me wrong, like, we were definitely in the same boat of letting all of us like, hey, let's do this because it's great. Let's do this, but it's gotten us in trouble, right? And and even now, like we still do that at times, right? Like we love this product, let's figure it out, right? And but that's the beauty of it, is that you know you can do that, but involving everyone, it's not more like, hey, we can't do that because it's too big. It's like, hey, how can we do that? Right? How can we make it efficient? How can we, get this product out? And involving multiple people from all from different departments allows us to figure that out together, right? So I want my designers to bring in product and freely design, and then use everyone else to, okay, how do we accommodate and be better and be efficient? How do we get the margins in, and how can we ship it as quickly as possible? Um, so it's kind of that balance and blend of chaos versus not chaos when it comes to product development. But I think that's what allows us to be different, is that we like challenging things, and um, involving people and having systems that can help us do that. Then it makes it easy. It's like, creating a product in Fulfil, like having all the inputs, having a great BOM that allows us to make that on the fly. And that's the beauty of it. It just doesn't, it's not like I'm just using Shopify and putting a product in and hoping that my manufacturing team can figure it out. I have a system that allows me to have all the inputs, have everything that allows me to accommodate the complex inputs of a product. Because a product for us can have, on average, what's 5 to 8 different inputs products to make one product. So having a system that allows us to do that and pull from the inventory, pull from everything, that's the flexibility of designing really helps, right? Having Fulfill allows us to be flexible.
And then the final feedback loop you mentioned there is not only having that flexibility, but then utilizing the data after the fact to inform future product decisions. I think that's the last like
Yeah.
feedback loop you highlighted. That's super important because while a lot of obviously e-commerce businesses are seasonal, I think you guys are seasonal in a pretty unique way, both in the scale and also like a wreath after Christmas isn't sellable. Like
No.
you, and so you really got to get it right because that you're not going to make anything. Like other companies, they can discount down, like get some value out of that, but from a forecasting perspective, you really got to look at the data and tune that in because otherwise you're just left sitting on stuff you can't use.
And it's hard to have, we could discount stuff right at the end, but the hard part with that is that then you train your customers to think like, hey, these guys are going to discount all their line, so let's just wait. So then, imagine that the ops nightmare to try to get everything out before the 10th. So, we definitely, it's all a challenge with that short season and beating Christmas, right?
I'm wondering, like, aside from Fulfil and like that forming a core part of that production tech stack, like, have you implemented any other systems or technology around like the actual recruitment, training, onboarding of that many temporary workers? Like, where do you even start with that? Like, even getting all their names into one place, let alone knowing who's in the building.
Yeah. So it used to be all of us, right? It's all of us trying to get everything together. But we actually just launched a new software. It's called Harvest. They are in the kind of the farm field business, like cherry pickers, blueberry, like all the farms here in the United States, and they have a full simple onboarding um, software, and also helps with training, safety meetings,
Yeah.
communication, employee discipline. So everything to manage a lot of people. So before that, it was all us, right? It's everyone hands on deck. Where we got a 2 days, and then we pay weekly. So we had like we'd have like onboarding parties, I guess you could call them, right? So you'd be like, hey, you can come this week to get onboarded. It's, 3 days, 4 days, come get onboarded. But I was the biggest offender when those weeks were over and I needed people, and I'm like, okay, you can start right now. And then my office team would be like, Eve, no, we need all the paperwork. So, and as we were, that happened a lot when we were a lot smaller, but obviously now it's, we have rules we've followed before, but Harvest is going to prevent all of that. So it even connects with our, um, so something we do is we track all the wreaths and centerpieces that are made, because those employees all get paid by piece rate. Um, and that allows us to track what everyone's making, how quickly they're making it. And then 2 years ago, I connected it to Fulfil. So as we're tracking, yeah, as we're making them, it's making a production order, pushing it to Fulfil, and then letting my design team know that they have inventory to be able to use to design. So that helps a lot. That's something that I've always had in place. We used to, when I first started, the second year, Andy was like, hey, you can't be a shipper anymore. You need to do something else. So he put me in charge of the production team, and we used to go into a tent, count at the end of the day, all the reads, write down how many pieces they made, and then give them a little receipt. And then I would give that to the office manager, and then she would handwrite everything, calculate how much we were going to pay. And then I would take all the reads, put them on a trailer with a quad, and we would take them into the forest. We cleaned the forest up high and then put pallets on the ground, and that was our cooler. That was our Mother Nature cooler that we had. And then we would put them all there. And the second year, we had four, the second year that I had started, my second season, then we introduced like forklifts and stuff like that because we moved into a warehouse. But we were now from there, the industry standard would be you would get two pieces of paper, cardstock, and then you would punch hole one, and that would equal six wreaths. And then you would go around, and you'd give them their copy, and then at the end of the day, they would come to you and be like, okay, do our cards match? I would sign it off. I would give it to our office manager. She'd do the same thing, and then after that season, I told Annie, I was like, "Hey, boss, there's got to be a faster way to do this." You know, Patty, our office manager, is taking so much. It takes me. Then I found a company out of San Diego that was helping farms doing the same thing, and they helped me implement it with a scanner. So it'd scan a barcode, print out a ticket, give them a ticket, and then that would give me a raw file that would get uploaded into QuickBooks to pay everyone. And then they didn't have an API that I could use, so then I moved 5 years ago. I moved to FieldClock that had an open API that because I wanted all my systems to communicate with each other. Um, so they helped me with that, and Fulfil helped me, get that connection and the production orders connected. But the evolution to that is also pretty impressive. Just like time savings, you know, being as accurate as possible, knowing how much you were actually taking to, what your cogs are when you're making a certain product. And I think that's where it also gets us because everything's handmade, right? So, I can make a wreath and say, okay, it's going to take us this long. This is how much we're going to pay for it. But then, you start looking at the data and they're like, okay, it's taking them twice as long to make this greenback. Is it really, does it really make sense, right? So having all that information is just, and to make decisions, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. Like you see that data, you obviously have put together this product with the base understanding of how much time it takes, and labor is going to be a large chunk of the full breakup of costs. If you see it taking 2x, have there been scenarios where been able to bring it down to what you expected? Has it been with certain operators that then you've retrained, changed? Like what actually tangibly occurs if you're utilizing that data effectively?
Well, top secret with a new product launch that we're doing that will go live this year is so we make a tabletop tree. So it's has a plastic bowl with a metal frame and then some foam where we insert all the greens. So it takes us for every tree we make, we can make four centerpieces. So we're like, and there was days we had to make 1,000 trees, right? So it I would I would lose 3,000 pieces I could have, to ship out. So I'd have to pull resources from different departments to help. So with that data, just having that data and finally be like, okay, this is one, it's not scalable, right? And other than pushing the price up, to control how much we're making. So we're still going to have this tree, but we're actually introducing because of that data. We have a live little Christmas tree. We're actually going to ship out and decorate it the same way with decorations. One, the trees, it's growing naturally, right? We've brought them in. We're controlling what they look like, and you know, from there, it's just there's no production, right? It's just grab the tree, design, ship it. So we've eliminated one whole process with just that data, and it's allowed us to find a new product and really enhance it, and honestly at a more affordable price as well, right? Because we're not having that labor for this tree, and we can bring this product into market at a good price for customers to have something for themselves, and they can even, if they want to, they can plant it, right, and it will grow in most zones. So just being innovative, getting information to be innovated is super important.
And that's the thing. Like people talk about, oh, source of truth, this, I need data, that. But if you don't actually use it and know what to look for and then actually close the feedback loop and make a change, what good is that data? So like I love hearing the actual impacts that your team has looking at that data and getting the benefit of, you talked about, I want all my systems to connect and talk to each other. That sounds great, but what's the true value out of that? It's like, okay, now I can see this is the time they spend. This is how I can now impact changes to either hiring or product development or whatever that is. That's the important part. You've invested all this time. Use the data, but only you know your business well enough to know what the relevant pieces are, and then what changes can actually be made.
And as we get bigger, it's going to be important to use it even more, right? Because again, we grow, but my time frame doesn't grow, right? So it's looking at that data. I mean, I love what you guys have, Fulfil has done with, the custom reporting and using AI to like run a SQL report. And like it's just having, like the last 2 weeks, I've just been messing around. I'm like, oh, what if I can build this report? What if I can do this? Right. So it's, the information has always been there, but it takes time to kind of, okay, what's the endpoint? What do I need to call out? But now it's just like, let me write a prompt and, then I can fix my prompt, right? So it's just having data like that is people really need to take advantage of using that to make decisions. And and a lot of our decisions are instinctive, right? Like we still, you know, we could see a report. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we're just still gonna try it. Let's figure it out, right? Don't get me wrong, right there, but it's having the information at least keeps you grounded and really helps you understand what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, and sometimes having the data is just about knowing that the thing that you did had an impact, or even just placing a guardrail in place where you're like, we're going to play around with this, but if it impacts this, we got to pull the plug.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think it highlights also some of the other pieces that Oliver spoke about earlier. It's just like, yes, you have the core platforms, but then how are you utilizing them and building on top of them? So we talked about one of the softwares you mentioned, just the time tracking. Uh, is there anything else you've kind of built on top of uh, or added to your tech stack that you think has helped, especially as you scale new people and to have to ramp up?
Um, yeah, I mean, we've made our own production order app that allow, especially because we have a lot of people that English is their second language, right? So, simplifying the run of a production order for people. So we've made a system where there's a team, right? There's a screen for each team, and it's a simple like run the production order. Okay, I'm done, right? So instead of having to do all the moves, uh, but now I'm actually trying to push people off to your native production, because of being able to have have themselves help themselves, right? So I don't want it to end up being, hey, Eve, the production order app is broken, you need to fix it, right? So it's in having the ability to like put videos and information and like allowing people to help themselves will be very helpful.
You touched on something that Oliver is very familiar with, which is building custom versus using native solutions. I mean, you get exactly what you want with the custom builds, but then the maintenance piece, Oliver, I'm sure you're all too familiar.
Yeah, it goes back and forth because it's you can train people on the custom stuff, or depend on your software company that's helping you build the apps. But it's having something native and having enough information for someone to help themselves. I see the benefit in the long run. Right now, you also have to weigh efficiencies, all that, right? Because now in from 2 clicks, I'm going to a couple more clicks, right? So is that going to benefit me in the long run or not? Um, versus me fixing it if I need to fix it. But it's difficult because of um the employees that we have. So they're so seasonal. So by the time the season ends, they're pros, right? But the beginning is where it gets difficult. And then so being simple has always benefited us. Trying to eliminate as much information and compress it for them to be successful. But we used to have a custom shipping app, right? With same thing, very simple. But now I look back at it, there's no way we could use that it being so simple, right? Because now, having the ability to see the inputs on the shipping app, being able to identify, okay, these packages have these certain items, being able to batch by the different inputs and everything, and making that quicker, like, moving it, moving the system then was scary, and a lot of my team that was here didn't want to. They're like, this takes too long. I can't do it. We can't do it. But now it's second nature, right? So it's just enhancing it, making batches. We can see when batches, older batches versus newer batches when it comes to ship. They can prioritize. My involvement is less and less. It's easy to teach, right? So it's definitely. I think there's a time and place for custom, and there's a time and place where you need to transition to something that's being built for the more natively. But I think that also it's vice versa too. There's sometimes the native part of it doesn't work for your current flow, so you have to build something that's custom, and that's
Yeah.
the
Do you
beauty
have
again having the open API.
do you have an internal tech team?
Yes, there's a couple of us, but we do use a consultant from that we actually met through Fulfil, Chris Moore from KD. So, but just learning from him too, right?
But you're very like operator led from a tech perspective, and it's about like leveraging tech around operations rather than getting too tech heavy led on trying to figure out how to put this tech or that tech into the business. It's a little bit more what's the priority and then finding a way to do it.
I think the priority ends up being kind of how simple can it be? Because if for us, because our shipping window and our manufacturing window are so short, any time that we can save is important for us, right? And anything that takes a little more time scares us, honestly, right? It does scare us. It does scare us to make the jump. Um, but sometimes you do have to make that jump and just move forward. But most of it is just convincing my team and convincing myself that it's going to be okay, right? And we'll be able to figure it out. But because our window's so short, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to know when to prioritize and when it's time, because you're so scared of interrupting the flow you have, um, and interrupting it where it can negatively impact you because your window's so short.
Exactly what you described is kind of an ops forward approach to building solutions, in that you've taken the outcome you're trying to drive from an ops perspective and said, this is how we prioritize what we develop. I think, what to Oliver's point, there's almost the inverse that some people take, which is we have this tech forward approach, and it's like, okay, we have a separate IT team or a separate tech team and build it out. Whereas I think you could see the benefits being ops forward. And Oliver, I'm sure you have experience dealing with kind of both versions of orgs, where you have the kind of separate tech function versus the ops driven tech.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty rare to have a dedicated tech function in a business sub 100 million US dollars, and it's arguable whether it's a good thing. When it does happen, I'm seeing more and more that I often find if there's a strong FD, then you might end up with a head of technology where they don't necessarily want to bring in a COO alongside them. But I think like the best format I can see at the minute sub 100 million is that you have a COO and tech falls under operations, because it's so much of what you're doing now, even in just everyday tech, right? If you're COO, you're responsible for all operations, and tech, leveraging tech isn't just about, like we've been talking a lot about, production or supply chain or really specific things. It can also be about, like, what are we using, Gmail or Outlook? And like, how are people like getting an email set up when they join the company? And that's kind of more like IT management type stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you, especially as we see like AI more, which we managed to go a full 40 minutes on this pod without talking about it. But as we see it more, it's I swear. I mean, but what you're describing is really how we want to see AI rolled out across orgs, and it's not just how we want what we've seen effective. Like ops driving it. Now you have more tools available to you, Eve, as you said, like, oh, I don't need someone in tech to build me a SQL report. I can do that. That the things you can now do without a tech team, just with the ability to use AI, is going to compound and expand. And so now you are going to be able to do more and drive that AI adoption because you know what the tactical use cases are. You've been on the floor. You know what questions to ask, which is exciting. Um,
Yeah.
so I think
Yeah, I
it's a
think
cool way to see that impacted.
it's definitely benefited us, as, you know, our core team has grown with the company, right? And we're all so ops driven, right? That we've learned tech as we're growing, right? So, and even the team that I have now that's involved with the tech part of it, they all understand the operations very well, right? Like it's like spending time in the warehouse, spending time on what's happening really has kind of, it's more like, hey, we're doing this, but hey, look at this. Just look at this software. Look at this, what we can do, and they understand how to implement it very quickly.
Yeah. And so I love that. I think that makes perfect sense. Just before we wrap, I know we got a 10 more minutes or so. I want to make sure that some of our listeners walk away with the tactical lessons learned for hiring, ramping up, onboarding, some of those things that you guys do particularly well. And I think a lot of people could benefit to learn from some of the things you've implemented or some of the mistakes you've learned from as well. So I know maybe you can't share full numbers, but talk to us about the scale, what you ramp up, how you ramp up, and how that's worked for you so far.
Yeah. So, kind of, I'll just start with the office team. I think the office, and getting so many customer service representatives, and something I didn't mention is that we have kind of two parts of the business. Is we have our website, and then we have corporate clients. So it's, your law firms, your bank associates that are gifting people, gifts to people. So we have to pull from, we have to get talent for two different things, right? One, people that are really good at talking to other customers, and then the other is, more of a white glove service where you're walking them through your products and what they want to gift. So I think the office team has done a really good job of um, bringing in talent by being ourselves, right? Like our ad that we do on, Indeed is like a funny ad, and Andy's, trying to pull his character in, and he's, saying, hey, come work with us. I know I have a couple slackers, but, we'll all work it out and get it done. And, just being creative there, right? And bringing in people that are also like-minded, and and providing a good environment. It comes down to culture when it comes down to hiring people. So they've done a really good job there. For us in the warehouse, we're fortunate that we have a seasonal, there's other seasonal businesses around us that die down. But again, it goes back to culture, right? So we provide an amazing environment. We let people, think for themselves, and allow them to improve our systems. Um, and I have many people that quit real jobs to just come work for us during the season. And it's crazy. It's our warehouse return rate is probably, we have about 80% of them are returners year after year, and then it's 20% that we're looking for. But again, it goes back to culture. It's how we manage, how we respond, and who we are as people too. I said it earlier. It's like I'm on the shipping line, right? Like Andy's on the shipping line. We're designing wreaths with people. um you know Sometimes it's like undercover boss, right? Like it's like people don't know who we are, especially when I go to the Elma facility, and you know but it's showing, leading as by example is very important to us. All our leaders, everyone that is in a leadership position, essentially started from the beginning, right? And what they were doing. And as we want to retain people, that's what we're looking for. It's those same type of people that want to get their hands dirty and continue the culture and really enhance what we're doing. And that's who I look for, right? That's who, I'm generally adding one or two people every year. Full-time employees, we have about 30 people. And it all depends on what we're doing too, right? It all depends on our needs. But I think really to retain employees and scale up, right? You want people to hear your name and say, "Hey, that's a cool place to work for," right? And they treat their employees well, and pay is part of it as well, right? We do pay a little more than other companies around, but it ends up being our culture. It ends up being who we have as leaders and who we have here to help scale. And then and again, using softwares to onboard people quicker, and having systems that allow them to learn quick too, right? Like, you know, it's all our systems are user friendly, and anyone we can train anyone, and as they get better, the systems get better, right? It's not like they're learning something and then they can't fix, or make it better. It's they're really able to enhance them, as they educate themselves how to use it more.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe the last 5 minutes, any lessons learned the hard way that you can share? If there's tactical advice that you could give to people who do have to ramp up or have to hire temporary staff during season, is there any words of wisdom you give?
I don't know. I mean, it's just, you know, we've been doing it for so long that it becomes second nature to just operate in chaos, right? But I think that having a good checklist on what you want to accomplish, having right people educated on how to do things is important as well, right? Like, yes, we are all, I'm involved in a lot, but I do have specific people that are ready for the chaos, right? They've planned for it. They know what they need to do. They look for resources to hire people. Using hiring agencies. Being creative on your ads. You know, convince someone to come work for us, right? Don't just put in an ad that has, "Hey, these are your duties. This is what you do. This is what." Convince them to come work for you, right? Give them a reason to open that ad so they know that they're coming to a place they want to work for. And then from there, if they ask, you want to be relative, right? When in your local area as well. So you want to make sure that people know that you're a great place to work for. And I think that's important. That's kind of helped us a lot, is that, we again try to our culture is great here, and we want people to enjoy their time here, and we want people to work hard, right? And that's that's important, right? And again, leading by example helps a lot. Now I'm not telling every person to go out on the floor if they don't need to, but it's having your supervisors and managers be part of the process and yourself be part of the process, moves mountains, right? And as long as we work as a team here and we communicate well, we can accomplish anything. And that's the beauty of it. And we like a challenge, and we use our team to help us, and and it's great. It's just it, it ends up being, again, for me, it's culture. It's who you have and what your expectations are and how do you execute things, and in also providing an environment where people want to come back after a 12-hour shift, right? So that's the importance for me.
Yeah, I love it. That's incredibly tactical takeaways for anyone who has to ramp up hiring and has to deal with a larger workforce. Uh, Well, I really appreciate you joining the pod. It was great getting to chat with you about your scale and about how you've worked with Fulfil, additional tools, how you've ramped up hiring, dealt with kind of seasonality. I think anyone who has any of those things, any e-commerce operators can really take away some useful information from this. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was awesome. At the very least, thankful that their peak period isn't quite as tough as yours, and they can sort of stop complaining and get back to it.
Exactly right. At a minimum, they can appreciate it. Can always
You've
be
got it
harder.
easy. You've got it easy. That's what they need to know.
Thanks again, and Oliver, looking forward to the next one.
Sweet. Likewise, Kabir. See you next time. Cheers.